Hi there, and welcome to The Salted Pepper, where we cook for real life using real food and we keep it real simple. And today we are going to make a pistachio avalanche cake in the Ninja Foodi. This is a spectacular cake and it is so much fun to make, so definitely stick around for this one. The first thing we're going to do to get started is to take our cake pans. Now I have 6-inch Fat Daddy-O round cake pans, and I will link to those below in the description. I have 2 of them. I also have these little biscuit cutters, and you can see they are different sizes because mine came in a set, and so they are slightly different, but that's not going to cause any problems in this recipe. So the first thing we want to do is get our cake pans prepared. What I like to use is something called a bakery pan grease, and I will link to the recipe below. It's a terrific recipe to use for any of your baking needs. I just absolutely love it. Nothing sticks when you use this. So I'm just going to brush it around in the pan along the edges as well in just a very thin layer. You don't need a lot. Now, of course, if you didn't want to make up the pan grease, you could just simply use Crisco if you like, or butter and a little bit of flour. That would work fine. But this actually has all of the ingredients in there all mixed up, and it just spreads so nice. It's a lot cleaner than dealing with the flour. But believe it or not, there is flour in there. Okay, that looks great. The other thing you want to do is grease the inside and the outside of your biscuit cutter. Just set those, and I'm trying to get them pretty much in the middle here, but I will reposition them before I put the cake batter in. Now, it might seem a little odd. Why are you using biscuit cutters? Well, the problem with this cake is that it did not get done in the center before it got overcooked on the outside. It was really a complete disaster the first time I tried it. So I knew that I needed to create sort of like a bundt cake form, but I wanted to use the 6-inch pan. I didn't want it to be one cake. And what ended up happening was so terrific that it actually sparked the idea for the avalanche cake. So I'm really excited to show you guys this. So now that the pans are prepared and ready, we can start to get our cake batter mixed up. Now this is something you are not going to see from me very often. In fact, this might be the only time. This is a box cake mix, and the reason why I'm using it instead of making one from scratch is because this is how my mom made the cake. It is perfect in every way. It's one of my favorite cakes, and I'm not going to change that tradition. So this is a white box mix cake. Any brand will do. No problems there at all. And then we will add in 1 package of pistachio pudding. The Jell-O brand is what I use, but it's just 1 package of pistachio pudding. And now I'm going to add in 2 egg whites. Now you don't want to use egg yolks, just 2 egg whites. And I'm going to use an almond bakery emulsion for this. Now you could use regular almond extract. I just happen to really like the emulsion flavor. It actually adds a little more almond flavor to this. Now I don't know if you know this or not, but a lot of the flavoring in like a pistachio ice cream or in this pistachio cake actually comes from almonds. And then we're going to add in 1/3 cup of oil. This can be vegetable oil or canola oil, whichever you prefer. I don't really recommend using butter in this recipe, but you could give it a try, and if it works out great, then let me know, please. Okay, one last ingredient, and that is 1 cup of club soda. Now, what the club soda will do for the cake is add a little bit of extra leavening with the bubbles, and it just makes it rise a little bit more, and it's just a softer texture. I mean, this cake just turns out so beautifully, so I always use club soda. Now, hopefully I can get this off without. And hopefully it won't explode. All right, there we go, perfect. And I don't recommend pouring this ahead of time. You wanna pour it right before you put it in, right before we mix it up. So I'm just gonna add in 1 cup. You can do this with any flavor of cake that you want. I mean, if you didn't wanna make a pistachio cake, you could make a chocolate cake and make the same recipe. Just substitute the cake mix in and maybe chocolate pudding. All right, so there we go. Now we're just gonna give it a quick mix. We don't wanna overbeat it or anything. We just wanna give it a quick mix. I'm gonna start off on a very low setting. All right, that's perfect. So that just took about, I don't know, 30 seconds, 45 seconds to mix that up. Just set that over there. Now I'm just gonna take a large mix and scrape here and just sort of make sure that there's nothing left. None of the dry ingredients are on the bottom and it is well mixed, so that is perfect. Okay, great. Now we're gonna go ahead and add this into our pans. In order to make that easier, I'm gonna use a scoop because I only wanna add the batter around the edges. I don't wanna go inside of the biscuit cutter. I wanna go around the edges. So I'm gonna grab a scoop. All right, so now let's get the batter into our cake pans. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set both of them beside me here. I'm gonna try to make sure that these are as close in the middle as they can be. And then I'm gonna use a scoop. This is a large scoop that I use from Pampered Chef. You could use, you know, an ice cream scoop would work fine. And I'm just gonna take out one scoop and put it around the edges, okay? And I'm gonna do this one on each cake. I want to divide this batter evenly so that we have even layers at the end. Another way to do this is to weigh. You could weigh the batter and you could, you know, divide it that way. But so let me make sure that I get 3 scoops here. You can see I'm just going around the edges. I'm not getting inside of the biscuit cutter. During the baking process, some of the batter will leak underneath and will get in to the center here, but that does not create any kind of issue for the cake that we're making. And it's a nice little snack because it's a great tasting cake. All right. So I'm just gonna keep doing this until I get all the batter used up. Okay, that is perfect. And now I'm just gonna sort of take the spatula and just sort of spread this around just a little bit, just to get these kind of even on top. You could also take your pan and just sort of tap it down a little bit. That works as well. These center biscuit cutters will actually heat up and act like sort of like an extra little heating element to cook the center of the cake. So that's why they work so well. All right, perfect. Now I'm just gonna move this out of the way for a minute, and I'm gonna put 1 cup of water into the Ninja Foodi. We are going to get these covered with some foil. And that's because we don't want the moisture from the steam that develops when you're cooking under pressure to really get into our cake. So we want to cover them with foil. And I find it easier to put these on the rack outside of the Ninja Foodi. So I'm just going to set this carefully over here. I have a little waffle maker. It's a little silicone thing. It's gonna go as the buffer in between my cakes, just to kind of keep them from sinking in. Because if this shifts, it could sink into the other cake because they're about the same size. So I put this on top. This is totally optional. These cake pans are flat walled, which is why I absolutely love them. So they will probably just stay put just like this. But this fits into the Ninja Foodi, and I just wanted that extra degree of security, so I'm gonna put it on. But again, it's totally optional. We will be using the rack that came with the Ninja Foodi. And place your cake pan, doesn't matter which one goes on first or anything. Place that there. Put my little silicone waffle thing. Put that on top. Use the handles here and make sure you grab it here and kind of press down a little bit. That's gonna keep everything like steady while you lower it in. We're gonna put it in. And I know it looks high, but it does clear the pressure cooking lid. So I'm gonna grab the pressure cooking lid and we're gonna get this secured on here. Line up the little arrows. It'll fall into place and then you can turn it. Okay, turn it on. We're gonna hit pressure. High pressure is fine, and we're gonna take this for 21 minutes. Now, if you were using 8-inch pans instead of the 6-inch, you're gonna have smaller layers, and you would still use one cake mix. You would wanna set this for 20 minutes. But because these are 6-inch, so they're a little bit higher, I'm gonna go for 21 minutes. Hit start. Make sure your black valve is to the seal position. That's very important for the pot to come under pressure. And then we will wait for it to build pressure, which really shouldn't take any time at all. It's just heating that 1 cup of water, and then it'll come under pressure, and we'll cook for 21 minutes. And then we're gonna let it sit for 10 minutes inside natural pressure release of the Ninja Foodi. Okay, so our pistachio cakes have been cooking for 21 minutes, and then I allowed it to natural release for 10 minutes, and that time is up now, so we're gonna go ahead and turn it to vent. And there really wasn't that much steam left in, so this won't take any time at all, and the button popped down. So now we can lift this lid up. And I'll just set that over here. And now what I wanna do is I'm gonna go ahead and take this top layer off. And then I can grab the rack easier. And just grab the rack out. So it's sitting flat. Perfect. Okay. Take this off. And there is some water on the top of this. So I'm just gonna carefully move it over so I don't put more water onto the tin foil. Now what we wanna do is let these cakes sit for about 5 minutes. I'm not even gonna take the tin foil off yet. I'm just gonna let them sit. That's gonna give the cake time to kind of settle down. So if it's risen up and it's touching the tin foil, it will settle down and we won't rip the top off of our cake. So about 5 minutes and then we'll uncover it. All right, so we've let these sort of rest and relax for about 5 minutes, and now we're gonna carefully take off the tin foil and just cross our fingers and hope nothing stuck to the top. But if it did, don't worry too much because we're gonna trim the tops off anyway. All right, I'm gonna set this over here and we're gonna work with one pan at a time. So I'm just gonna fold this up. I have these stackable racks, which really come in handy, especially if you're short on counter space. I absolutely love them when I'm baking cookies, and they're gonna work out perfectly for our 2-layered cake. So I'm just gonna set that over here. We're gonna work with one at a time here. All right, so there is still a little bit of water on the top, so I wanna be careful. I don't wanna dump that into my cake. I'm just gonna kind of spread this out and just sort of gently lift. I feel like it might be sticking right in the middle. So I'm just sort of like gently taking it. Well, we got one little piece, but again, that is not gonna matter at all. And then I'm gonna use my cake tester and I'm just gonna run around the outside, which that looks really good. So it has pulled away from the pan and it looks like the center is cooked nicely. So everything's looking really good. Now I want to get this on my rack to cool completely before we start layering our cake, creating the avalanche, which is going to be so exciting. I can't wait for you guys to see this, and putting the icing on, of course. So let me get my gloves here because this is still a little hot. It's not super hot, but it's hot enough. I don't want to all of a sudden feel like I'm being burned and want to drop the pan, okay? So the easiest way that I found to move a cake from a pan to a cooling rack is to grab it like this and then turn it over and set your cooling rack down. And that way you have less chance of actually breaking the cake. I'm just gonna put this here. Okay. And now this is like the time where anytime you're baking a cake, you're like, oh, please. Move it around a little bit. Please. I always say that, please. Yay! And then you breathe a sigh of relief and you go on to the next one and you do the same thing. I'm not gonna worry about removing the little metal ring right now. The cake is still pretty hot. It's gonna come out a little bit easier, have less chance of breaking the cake once the cake cools. Grab our little cake. And again, slowly lift up the foil. Try not to get the water into the cake. If the foil rips, it doesn't matter. And I just I don't want to rip it off because I don't want to rip the top layer off. And this one feels like it stuck a little bit more, and it did, but that's okay. Oh, it's fine. Oh yeah, that's fine. In fact, it's funny, it felt like it stuck more, and it kind of did, but it didn't take the little gouge out of the center. So that one looks really good. So I think this one's gonna be our top to our cake. And we're gonna do the same thing. I'm just gonna run this around the outside just to make sure, but it looks like it has pulled away from the pan perfectly. That's another reason to give it 5 minutes to cool. That does help some. And I'm gonna get my gloves back on, and we're gonna do the same thing that we did with the first cake. Okay, so let's get our pan here. We're gonna do the same thing. So put the cooling rack over top, grab your cake, and flip. All right, here goes. I always get so nervous. But this pan grease, I'm telling you, make it. Yay, it worked again. It's so fantastic. You just have to give it a try. If you are a baker, you definitely want to use this. And now we can just stack our cakes. The thing I love also about these cooling racks is the fact that not only are they a counter saver, but they allow a lot of good airflow in between. So they're gonna cool quicker. So we're gonna let them cool completely. This is gonna take an hour or two. You could stick them in the refrigerator. In fact, I think that's what I'm gonna do to try to speed this up a little bit. But it just takes the time that it takes. So as soon as it's done, then we will level our cakes, get them iced, and I'll show you what I mean by this avalanche. You're gonna love it. So the cakes have been cooling. I put them in the refrigerator for about an hour or so, and they feel really good, and they're nice and chilled. And now we're gonna get to the really fun part. Let's make the avalanche cake and do all the decorating. This is like so much fun. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is get the cakes off of the cooling rack. We can work with one cake at a time. And there is the metal round that we had in there, the biscuit cutter, that's still in there. So I'm gonna gently twist it and pull just to kind of remove it slowly. And you're gonna see that in the center, if your cake starts to break a little bit, it's okay. In the center, there's gonna be some cake batter. You wanna keep those, and I'll show you why, but you do wanna keep those at least for now. So you can taste them a little bit later, but we might need to use them, so we're gonna keep them for now. All right, so we've got one done, and now let's go ahead and trim up the top here. Now you could do this several different ways. You could just use a little knife, or you could use a serrated knife. I would definitely recommend a serrated knife. Or you can use what I have, which is basically a little cheap cake leveler. I mean, these are not expensive at all. And so let me show you how to use the cake leveler. I'm gonna move this just for a second. So put the cake and you set these to the amount of height that you want. So this is set on 6. Now that does not mean 6 inches or anything, but it did look like that would take off the top layer without removing too much of the cake. So I'm gonna go ahead and set it here, and it's like a saw, and you just sort of go back and forth. So what we're doing is we are leveling the cake so that we can have really nice even layers and have a beautiful finished cake to serve. Okay, easy as that. Again, serrated knife works. You just wanna kind of eyeball and try to be as even as you can. All right, let me just lift this up a little bit here. Perfect. All right, that looks great. I'm gonna take it right back over this one a little bit. I know it cut through, but it didn't come off. There we go. Okay. Perfect. And this is a very moist and tender cake, so we want to be careful with it. All right, so I'm going to set this over here for now. I'm We're gonna work on the other one. Now the other one is completely closed on top. Now what I'm hoping is gonna happen is when I remove the center biscuit cutter that we're actually gonna keep that top. That doesn't always happen and it's okay. That's why we save these so we can put a top on our cake when we're finished filling it. So I'm just gonna do the same thing. If they seem a little bit tight, like it's not coming off, you can run your cake tester or something very thin around. And this one I'm gonna have to. And there's a pointy end to this and also a flatter end. I'm gonna use the pointy end because I really want to get this out without disturbing any of the cake if possible. So I'm just gonna run it around. And I'm gonna run it around the inside as well. Okay, let's see if that helped. The other one came out really easy, but this one is a little stubborn, I think, because it's probably stuck to the top. All right. Now this one's coming out and it's leaving the center in there. So we're gonna have to see. We do need to get that out because if we don't get that out, then it will not work for our avalanche cake. So, but I wanna really try to, so let's do this first. Since we know the center's in there and we need to deal with that, let's go ahead and level the cake and see what happens. Because if we take off enough, it's gonna expose that anyway. And so we won't have a cap. So let's just see how that's gonna work out. So again, the same thing. Let me just get rid of that. All right, so let me go ahead and level this cake using the same setting. I have a feeling that we're gonna end up with a hole, but that's okay. That's why we save the centers. Okay, perfect. Now these layers here that you're removing are great for like snacking. So, you know, it's called the chef's treat. Oh, wow. This cake is so amazing. If you've never tried a pistachio cake, give it a try. And look, it worked. So now I'm gonna turn this over and we're just gonna go ahead and dig this out a little bit. And I think, you know, my cake tester, I think I'm gonna still use the cake tester for this because I really don't wanna go all the way down. I just wanna get out about 3/4 of it. So I'm gonna go through, kind of slice it in there. And pull it out. Perfect. Still, do not get rid of these. Hold on to them because when we cut this in half, we might end up, you know, pushing this through and have a little opening in our cake. So keep those handy, okay? All right, so now we're gonna actually split these into two because we want to have a really nice, tall, layered cake with all of this delicious Cool Whip icing, which I'm gonna flavor with the pudding. So you can leave it just like that. Now we wanna eyeball. So obviously we can't go back over because that's too big. So I wanna eyeball this. I'm gonna set it down to 8 and see if that's gonna get into the center of the cake. Nope, so we need to go down. So let's go all the way down to 9 and see what happens there. That is perfect. So we're gonna do the same thing and split these 2 layers into 4. Again, you can use a serrated knife, just eyeball it. This works much better when your cake is cool. So you wanna make sure you do this after the cake is cool. Or if you're having any trouble, you can pop the cake in the freezer and do it. Now gently lift and put this to the side. This is gonna be our top. So I'm gonna put that over to the side here. And we're gonna do the same thing with this other layer. And actually, you know what I'm gonna do? Is I'm gonna move these, but I'm gonna move them with this spatula carefully. Just move them to a flat surface because I'm gonna, you know, cut this one in half and I can't get the clearance with the cakes on there. All right, so this should work perfectly. Yep, that's great. And we're just gonna slide through. See how easy that is? I will definitely link to this below in the description because it makes leveling cakes a breeze. And then we're gonna slowly remove this one. All right, now what I'm doing is I'm eyeballing. This one looks like a nice sturdy base. So I'm gonna use this as the base of our cake. And how I'm gonna do that, how we're gonna decorate that is by moving these over here. I'm gonna go ahead and take the same 6-inch cake pan that I used to bake the cake. And I'm gonna put just a little bit of parchment paper. Now you want the parchment paper to be equal to or a little less than the size of the pan, okay? So you don't want it to be overlapping or that's gonna look funny when we put it on our cake plate. And then we're gonna get the base in. Now this base has got some extra little cake there and I wanna get that out. So I am gonna just take a little knife and get that out. Because I want a nice round center for our cascading candy. I'm so excited for this. Wait till you see what happens. So we're gonna put candy inside and then when we cut it, it's all gonna cascade out. It's gonna be so great. All right, so let's get this as our base. Let's get this on. Now, to make the icing, what I usually do is something I never do. I use Cool Whip, okay? I don't make my own whipped cream for this. Again, this is Mom's recipe. I follow it to a T, except I'm making kind of a fancier version of the cake she makes. So another packet of pistachio pudding goes into 16 ounces of Cool Whip. And you can use brand name or you can use off-brand, it doesn't matter. And you want it to be in the refrigerator for a day or so because you don't want to have frozen clumps in it. You want it to spread nicely. So we're gonna add that and then just mix it up a little bit. And just kind of go slow at first. You will see this, the pistachio pudding will actually turn the whipped cream green and it's a real pretty green. So this is a great dessert for St. Patrick's Day. It's also a great dessert for Easter. And you could put jelly beans inside or something like that. It would be really cool. Or if you didn't want the pistachio flavor and you wanted to do like, let's say chocolate, like we talked about before, and you did, a chocolate pudding with a chocolate cake, you could put, M&Ms in there. That would be really cool too. So anyway, the sky's the limit. Use your imagination. But if you haven't tried a pistachio cake, give it a try because it is delicious. Okay, that looks pretty well mixed, so that's good. And we're gonna just set that over to the side and we're gonna bring up our cake and let's get the middle on. So to make this easier, I have a disposable pastry bag that I just cut. It's about an inch and a half opening in the bottom. And we're gonna use that to do our filling. It just makes things easier. Now, if you don't have these, I will link to those below. I get them on Amazon. They're like, I think in a box of 100. And I've had these for, I don't know, a year or two and haven't run out. Might even be 500, but I'm not sure. But if you don't have these, you can use a Ziploc baggie as well. That works perfectly fine too. Then just put in your icing. I'll just put a little bit in at a time. And then pull this back over. I'm trying not to get my hands in it. It's a really light icing. And it's just so good. I mean, it's Cool Whip, You can't go wrong with Cool Whip, can you? So what you want to do is you want to fill each layer with about a half of an inch of the cream. Now, as the next layer goes on top, this is gonna press out some, so I don't spread it at this point. I just go ahead and do this and then put the other layer on. So we can get this guy on. And then go ahead and put a little more icing. Okay, let's get the next one done. This just makes it so easy. That looks a little bit, not quite as high as the other one. Okay, now we're gonna save our top for last, but we're gonna get this layer on. And now's a good time to kind of take a look at your cake, and you can kind of get down and see, are there places that need to be pushed down to level it? And that looks so good. This is gonna be incredible. I'm so excited about this. Okay, so let's get to filling it with candy. So what I have here is I have two different kinds of Skittles and I have sugar babies. I have a sour Skittle and the regular fruit kind of Skittle, and I've just got sugar babies. Again, you could use anything. Easter time, it would be great. Be great to use M&Ms. Whoops. Runaway one. But since I'm doing this for St. Patrick's Day, I kind of thought the sugar daddies were like, I don't know, little gold nuggets and then the color of the rainbow, you know, so that's why I chose these. You do want to choose candy that has like a harder coating so that it doesn't get too soft. The other thing you want to make sure is that you don't refrigerate the cake. Oops, I got another runaway. You don't refrigerate the cake for any period of time after making it, because these things will get a little sticky. Then you won't have as much of a cascade effect. So I recommend kind of decorating this cake, at least this part. So you could decorate all of it like up to this point and then just put the filling in at the last minute. I'm gonna pile this, not like super high, but just kind of into a little mound, because we're gonna put on that other layer. And I want the candy to be up above the filling part. So let's get this bag filled with the last little bit of the whipped cream that we're gonna put as the filling. Then we're gonna use it to ice in the whole cake. All right, perfect. Now you could use a larger pastry bag too if you have one. I have a really nice one from Pampered Chef that I just love, but you can't beat like disposable sometimes. So there's gonna be a little air in this one, and that's okay. Perfect. Okay, now I'm gonna carefully lift this and try to get this on so flat and good. Okay, there we go. Now you can rearrange it. You can push it down, like I said. You can do any of that. Try to see if it's centered. Don't worry if any oozes out, because we're gonna ice in the whole thing anyway. And if you really wanna be technical, you can get a level, but look, it's not necessary. If I'm making a wedding cake, I get a level. If I'm making a St. Patrick's Day cake for my family, I don't get a level. All right, that looks perfect. Now we can go ahead and use the rest of this, just put it on top, and then we can discard this one. And go ahead and add. I suggest putting a big mound on the top. I just think it makes it a little bit easier to go down the sides. And I'm using an offset spatula that I like to use, or cake spreader, I guess it's better known as. And just take some off the top, go around. It's still thick enough that it is not like gonna fall off your cake or anything. And we're just gonna go around. This is where this little cake pan, you can also turn it. So if you don't have one of the cake turners, which I have, but actually I think this works a little bit better. And we're not doing buttercream, so we're not really worried about a big, real smooth looking cake. We want it to be pretty, but it doesn't have to be too fancy. Don't worry, I'm gonna go back over and get those places that I missed. I'm just trying to get a nice even layer. Put a little bit more on the top here. What I love about this cake is that it's light enough. It's not gonna collapse on itself. I mean, if you did like a big 8-inch layers like this and you had 4 layers, you'd actually have to secure the cake a little bit. So this one is gonna work out perfect without doing any kind of cake construction. Then we're gonna go around once and even it all out. That looks pretty good. I can always touch up if I need to later. So now what I'm gonna do is take this and just sort of scrape off the top. I don't mind the design that's going on with the Cool Whip and the little bubbles. It's kind of cool looking. And we're just gonna do the same thing with the sides. And any extra, just put back in your bowl here. It looks like this cake, I might have been able to get away with one 8-ounce tub. but then you would definitely want to use only half of the pudding because you don't want one whole package of pudding for 8 ounces of the Cool Whip. Oops, I see a little bare spot here. Okay, so now I want to clean off, actually, you know what? I can use this other, I have a large spatula. I also have a cake lifter, but I couldn't find it. So now I'm gonna move everything around a little bit and we're gonna get this on our cake plate and then we're gonna decorate it and we will slice into it and see it cascade. This is the exciting part, stick around. All right, so I'm gonna get this pushed forward a little bit. Let me move my candy because we might use this for some decorating. And I'm gonna move this here and put my cake plate over here. Now, it's a nice size cake plate, raised, it's gonna be pretty, and it is bigger, so we might build like a little scene out here just to make it really kind of fancy. Because you know, I like fancy. Okay, there's a little piece of parchment paper that I see poking out. That is gonna help me, because I have to go underneath of the parchment without getting into the cake. And you go very slowly, bring it back towards you. You can't touch the icing, so you need to get something, maybe like this would work, down on the bottom, to just help make sure that you've got this cake. And then we're gonna take it over here, put it down, voila, we got it. That's another cross your fingers and just hope. Now, to avoid all that, you can decorate it right on the cake plate, or you could decorate it on any cake, any kind of plate you want to serve it on. You know, you don't have to transfer it twice, but I just like it. I think it gives a cleaner look. All right, let's get to it. Let's see the cascade in motion. So I'm gonna make one cut right here, straight down through all the layers of the cake. Pull it out, make another. Oh, I hope it works. It'll be so exciting. And then just go ahead and grab it and pull that cake out. And it did, it worked. So we've got some candy coming out. Didn't cascade quite as much. Give it a little shake, it'll come out more. But isn't that cool? It's so exciting. Oh, I just think it's so much fun. Pull them all out. All right, now this serving is good enough for probably 2 or 3 people, but it's gonna be delicious. All right, so let me get this on a plate and we'll give it a quick taste. Try not to, I don't wanna mess it up. It's so pretty. I'm just gonna set it right there. I'll move this out of the way here and let me get a knife. Let me get a little fork. All right, now for the best part, let's taste it. Oh, I just love this cake so much. Oh, wow. It is so moist. And like the pudding in the Cool Whip, it just has the greatest like light, fluffy, delicious flavor. And there's actually real pistachios in the pudding mix. So you can get a little bit of the real pistachios in the cake and in the pudding. So there's like that little texture thing that I really like. Oh, that's so cool. Wow, that Skittle makes a cake like really even pop more with flavor. Oh, I really like that. Wouldn't this be a fun dessert to serve after corned beef and cabbage on St. Patrick's Day? I think so, and I think you should make it along with the corned beef and cabbage, which I will link to that video right up there. And then don't forget about the soda bread. You've got to make the soda bread. Whether you serve it for breakfast toasted with a little bit of butter or serve it with your corned beef and cabbage, the soda bread is so easy to make in the Ninja Foodi and it tastes delicious. And I will link to that video right up there. If you like this video, be sure to give me a thumbs up and make sure to leave a comment if you have any questions. I do read and respond to all of them. I appreciate you guys so much. If you have a recipe idea, feel free to send me an email. The link to the recipe will be in the description, so go ahead and click that see more and you will see all the products that I used to make this cake and also the link to the written recipe. How fun.